El Zorro Plateador presents The Metaphor of Game and the Manosphere, Understanding Men Today. Our mission today is to gain clarity about the Manosphere and its relationship to game. To do this, we will do three things. We will spend some time understanding the game metaphor, we will chart belief clusters within men today, and then we will categorize men into the different groups that we know and love. Red pill men, pickup artists, men going their own way, nice guys, MRAs, and InCells, and a few others. We're going to do all of this for one job, and that is to make sense of what's happening with men today and gain a sense of clarity as to how game affects the world of men. To get right into it, the first thing we're going to talk about with game are two common sayings that go as follows. Don't hate the player, hate the game. The player who controls himself controls the game. That last one is my favorite one. Now, there's so much going on here with these two simple statements. You really have to unpack the metaphor of the game between men and women, the intersexual dynamics going on at work, and you have to unpack this incredible metaphor to see what's going on behind the scenes. To do that, we need to unpack the game metaphor. And there's a couple of layers of the game metaphor I want to talk about briefly. Now, I have a background in linguistics, and I know a little bit about how metaphors work. And what we do is, in linguistics, we look at the way metaphors are constructed, and you use a root level metaphor, and then you extend that out. So in this case, we have the knowledge is a possession metaphor, which builds the framework for thinking about a skill as an object. And in this case, the skill is having some facility to seduce women or to talk to women or simply be comfortable around women. And we call those skills game. And game in this context is a possession. And we hear that when we say, I have game, or game is an object that I possess. So there off the bat, you've got this little metaphor at work going on behind the scenes where your skill as a pickup artist or as just any man has the idea that it is a possession that you can have, that you can gain, and that you can actually lose it as well. The other big part of this game metaphor, of course, is the game is a game board, where we all are players on the game board. And this is how we get the idea that life is a game, that we are all pieces on a game board, and that we play ourselves as pieces, as elements of the game, and that we all have specific game characteristics. What's interesting about this part of the game metaphor is how it forces you to objectify yourself and see yourself from another perspective. So you step outside yourself to see yourself as participating in this game, which itself is kind of a strange little intellectual phenomenon, but it's at work when you're thinking about game. And I think it makes a lot of men uncomfortable, especially blue pill beta men, because they don't want to think about the game and they don't want to objectify themselves. The deeper extensions of the game metaphor are also really interesting and important to understand, because if you're thinking about the interplay of sexual dynamics, you can also look at how people can cheat at games. You can use cheat codes within games. You can lie and manipulate, or you can play it honestly and be a good, clean, honest player. And there's also the idea that you have coins, points, and other achievements within the game. Now, obviously, you want female attention. You want to be around women. You want affection from them. You want to have a healthy relationship with women. You want them around you. You might want to control them. You might want to have sex with them. All of these are currency within this game metaphor. And it's quite interesting how this plays out in understanding men. Further extensions of the game metaphor also are, of course, winning and losing at this game, which itself is kind of twisted because there are no boundaries to when the game is starting or ending. So how do you know if you've truly won or lost? But, clearly there are some winners. The other thing that's interesting is that you can kind of ignore that you're in the game. You can tell yourself you're not participating in the game and also say, well, I obviously am part of this game. And you can also then analyze your value as a player itself. So all of this is going on within the background of game. When you're objectifying yourself, you also can easily map that process into ranking your sexual market value in the sexual marketplace, which is a very important thing to do. Oh man, is that a big deal? And blue pill beta men, nice guys, male feminists, white knights, they refuse to do this, as we'll find out. It's pretty interesting. But what's happening here is the game metaphor forces you to objectify yourself. And I think that's ultimately kind of a healthy thing for men to do a little bit. Not too much, obviously, but you don't want to be consumed with yourself as an object. Then you become like a robot. But a little bit is healthy. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is charting these belief clusters. And there are 3 clusters of beliefs that we'll be talking about. The first one, of course, is the sexual marketplace and your own sexual market value. The other one is humanizing women. And the third one is engagement with society. What we'll be doing is we're going to be looking at this as a spectrum that runs along a range, in the case of engagement with society, actively engaged or actively disengaged from society. With the sexual marketplace, we'll be doing that with the standard sexual market value ratings from 1 to 10. 10 being the most rare and the most difficult to achieve. And then for the humanization of women, we'll be ranking the behavior of men between pedestalizing women versus humanizing women, which is very similar to objectifying women, but pedestalizing means that you're placing them above you in a social ranking system, versus humanizing them means that you are seeing them as at the same level. The next thing we'll talk about with these clusters of beliefs is engagement with society. Now, in general, there is a spectrum of that where we perceive ourselves living in a feminine primary social order. Now, if you're a red pill man, you already are very aware of the gynocracy and how women have enormous amounts of power, but are unwilling to admit that, versus people who believe that society is functionally a patriarchy and that men dominate everything. So those are parts of how you engage with society. And what we'll be doing with that is ranking men's belief systems based on that power dynamic between the genders. So you can see how the red pill, it functionally believes in a matriarchal society, and that the red pill man's job is to see through that and operate within the structure of a matriarchal society. Blue pill men see societies being patriarchal. And of course, we've got black pill, who are men who don't engage in society, but still see it as matriarchal. And then we have purple pill men who are active in society, but are not sure if it's fully matriarchal or patriarchal. To be honest with you, I tend to be a little bit purple pill because I do see both sides of the coin, but I'm waiting for my own beliefs to shift a little bit, maybe further to the red. So the other thing that we'll be talking about a lot with each of these clusters of beliefs is core beliefs that relate to your engagement with society. And the 3 are women worth it? Do you feel like a victim? And do you have hope? Now, these are fundamental questions that men have to ask themselves pretty much every day. Are women worth it? Am I a victim? Do I have hope? These are big questions, and they define how you relate to society and are you willing to engage with it? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start categorizing men. There are two types of men we'll start with. The first one we'll call a possible candidate for an ideal man who has a very high sexual market value, who humanizes women, who does not put them on pedestals, and who is actively engaged in society and sees society as having a power structure that is balanced. You might have a perspective that forces you into the red pill arena versus the blue pill. That can change. That definitely shifts as you age. You can go either further blue pill, you can go further red pill. But the purpose of looking at this is to see what is a very powerful, robust man in terms of his clusters of beliefs. And what does he think? What does he believe? Does he say that women are worth it? Does he think that he's a victim? Does he have hope? I would say that the ideal man does think that women are worth it and is willing to put in the time and effort into dealing with women, and does not see himself as a victim of any of these social structures. He's participating in them and is managing them and even controlling them a little bit himself. He has plenty of hope for the future and basically sees the universe as a kind, good place, and he has plenty of hope in terms of his own success. We're going to look at how men think about game in terms of their legitimate worries. What do they think? And then what do they say? An ideal man like this would say, hey, the game is a team sport. Let's work together to be functional, complementary equals. This man would think, hey, everyone needs to understand the rules of the game, and they don't. He might say, hey, everyone be cool. There's plenty for everyone. That's one version of an ideal man. You might have a more macho version of an ideal man in your mind. You might have a more gentle one. But let's look at a troubled man. A troubled man is very different in these clusters of beliefs. You can see how his sexual market value is much less. He's ranked way lower in the sexual marketplace, and he doesn't humanize women. He places women on a pedestal, and that discourages him from engaging with society, and his engagement is very low. It doesn't really matter if he's patriarchal or matriarchal at this point, but you can see how this man is, in a lot of ways, deeply troubled and doesn't feel that women are worth it. He does feel like he's a victim, and he's losing hope like crazy. Now, what's interesting about this is if he is a blue pill man, he's in grave danger of committing suicide. If he is a red pill man, he's in danger of committing crimes against others, not himself. So you can see how the troubled man in this case is definitely forced to be reckoned with, and a societal factor that we need to be paying close attention to, in my opinion. The position on game of these troubled men is very, very troubling. They legitimately worried, why was I born without any achievements? Why do other men seem to have these inherited gifts of sexual market value, whereas I have none? And with regards to the game, they think I'm just a pawn in the game and I'll never be promoted to knight or bishop or queen. These troubled men say, I think I'm done with this game. I'm going to overturn the game board and destroy the game. So you can see how these troubled men are really suffering in some pretty profound ways that we need to handle. As men, I think that we really need to reach out to the types of men who are troubled and offer them some kind of help. Let's start by categorizing the actual groups of men that are alive and well today. And we're going to begin with the red pill man. The red pill man is very interesting in that his sexual market value is, and all of these are approximate, none of this is meant to be specific and scientifically quantifiable. This is very soft. The sexual market value of the red pill man, he sees that as coming and going, as very dynamic, that he can put on weight and then lose weight. He can gain muscle or lose muscle at will, and that he can control a lot of his own sexual market value himself. He has a high level of agency within the sexual marketplace through game. He also has red pill theory. The red pill theory, in my opinion, humanizes women far more than any of the other types of conceptual structures out there, in particular feminism. Feminism, I do not think, humanizes women very well at all. No, I don't agree with that at all. I think that red pill theory is very interesting. Terms like hypergamy, one-itis, game, all of these concepts take women off the pedestal. And I think that they don't really want to be on a pedestal. They want to feel like human beings. Everyone does. So red pill theory is a very interesting way to humanize people, and it does a very good job of it, and it gets no credit for having that effect. Red pill theory is not known for humanizing women, and I think in general, a lot of people on the red pill Reddit, for example, tend to be so bitter that you can't see how humanizing it is for many men. But let's look at the red pill man's engagement with society. The red pill man usually has a very high level of engagement with society, and he tends to see society as matriarchal. You can see all of these clusters of beliefs are acting to make the red pill man very outgoing and participating in society in what I consider to be very healthy ways. And you can see his position on game reflects this. He has the legitimate worry that women hide their cheat codes, but not anymore, thanks to the work of the early pickup artists. He thinks that the game is not what I thought he'd be playing, but here we go. He's kind of ready to face the challenges. He might say, I'm going to figure this game out and beat it. So you can see that the red pill man does think that women are worth it. He doesn't feel like a victim, and he has high levels of hope. So you can see how this man does fit that ideal in a lot of ways. Next up is the pickup artist. The pickup artist is virtually identical to the red pill man, with the exception of maybe having slightly more sexual market value because he's very actively increasing his sexual market value. He's also humanizing women a little bit less than your average red pill man, perhaps, and putting them on a pedestal a little bit more, but that's also subject to debate. He sees society as heavily matriarchal, and his position on game is identical to that of the red pill man. Next up are the men going their own way. Now, I totally understand this position on women and society, but let's take a look at it from the perspective of these clusters of beliefs. You've got the sexual market value, which might be a little bit less than the red pill man, because they simply are not willing to participate in the sexual marketplace in the same way. And maybe they pedestalize women a little bit more, and they're not humanizing women as much as red pill men or pickup artists. And what this does is it forces them to disengage from society. You can see they're beginning to detach from society, and they see society as heavily matriarchal. They don't see women as worth it. You can see a little bit of the victim typology coming out. And you can also see that they're beginning to lose a little bit of hope in society, and this causes them to withdraw. Their position on game is legitimately that the game is very dangerous, much more so than I thought. He might think, yeah, I'm not playing this game anymore. How do you exit this shit? He might say, fuck this game. I just lost all my coins and achievements. Got divorced, raped. Who knows what happened to the MGTOW to make him want to make this choice. They make a lot of sense, don't you agree? So next up is the blue pill man. Now notice the difference here. He has a very low sexual market value and does not humanize women. Instead, he puts them on a pedestal. And you can see how his engagement with society is sort of medium up there, but that he sees society as patriarchal. And what that does is it helps him rationalize having his dad bod, which then drops his sexual market value even more. And within this, you've got the subgroups, you've got your betas, your cucks, and your simps, who are all part of this whole blue pill ideology, which to me is extremely toxic. And we'll see another version of that in a moment. But the blue pill man does think that women are worth it. He does not really feel like a victim, although I think he is. And he sort of does have hope in society and in women in general. His relationship to game, though, is extremely toxic. He would say something like, many women have their coins taken away by men. That's what he's worried about. So he thinks to himself, well, there is no game. And if there was one, let women win because all the men take the coins anyway. And he'll say something like, I just play the way I'm supposed to. I don't deserve any coins. Now, the game metaphor here is completely stacked against his favor. He has all the disadvantages and none of the advantages of the pickup artist. A subset of the blue pill is the nice guy, which is virtually identical in its belief structure, except you can see how there's also these white knights and male feminists that have fundamental different beliefs from red pill men. They do think that women are worth it. They feel like victims, but they feel like they're victimized by bad men, not by women. And they also think that they have high levels of hope for reforming these men, which I think is very foolish. Their position on game could not be worse, could not be more toxic. The legitimate worry of the nice guy is, hey, being nice means I'll get coins. But he thinks, if I give my coins to women, they will let me keep playing this game. And he'll say to women, here are my coins. See how nice I am? And you can see this martyrdom taking its effect on the psychology of a nice guy in a very toxic way. And women rightly sense that they pedestalize them and they can't get away from nice guys fast enough. Next up are the men's rights activists. I have a soft spot for MRAs because I've been an MRA for a very long time, kind of a lurker in that space. I've been aware of Warren Farrell since the mid-90s, and he's very interesting. And MRAs have, in general, a very sound case against the matriarchy. In particular, male circumcision, divorce rape, the rate of suicides. It's really bad on behalf of men. So I understand the MRAs just as well as the MGTOW movement as well. But you can see the sexual market value of the MRAs is very poor. And you also can see how they don't humanize women quite as strongly as some of the other men. And their engagement with society is also detaching. They're withdrawing from society. And you can see that with other ethnic groups, like the introspective Black men of Reformation are another subgroup of MRAs that are quite interesting. Their relationship to game is disconcerting as well. Their legitimate worry is real danger comes from this game, and they've been burned by it. They think, oh, the game is rigged. However, it's open source and we can edit the code, which I think is optimistic of them. They also will say, we must mod the game because it's not fair. And you can see that there's this frustration against the way that the game is made that they're just chafing against. And they just haven't made the headway that they should have made. If they were feminists, feminists have made a lot of headway in their agenda, and men's rights activists have simply not been able to do that. And finally, we're going to look at the InCells. Now, these guys really trouble me a lot. You can see that they're struggling with the lowest of all the sexual market values of all the men. And they want women a lot too. However, they pedestalize women. They don't humanize them. And what this does is, this affects how they engage society. They withdraw from society, which they see as matriarchal. And you can see that it is a global phenomenon with sub-tribes all over the world. In particular, the Hikikomori, the Japanese Lost Boys, and you've got subgroups of incels like True Force Loneliness, and there's even some Indian ones as well. I'm quite sure that there's also subgroups of incels in China. All over the world, men are struggling with having low sexual market value and not being able to get out of that. Of course, their relationship to game is part of why they're stuck in this troubling quadrant of the manosphere. They have the legitimate worry, why do women seem to have all these cheat codes, but I have none? And they would think, well, the game is clearly stacked against me. How can I possibly win at this game? And they say, I'm not even going to bother playing, which makes a lot of sense. They just back away from the game completely. And what this does is it makes them very dangerous in a lot of ways. Just to take another look at the suicide zone. The suicide zone is the blue-pilled version of the incel who says that women are not worth it. I am a victim and I have no hope. That's a very depressed person. And this person's position on game is the same as that of the incels. The terrorists mirror that of the incels in that they have nothing vested, no investment in society. They have nothing at stake in society. So they have nothing to lose in building up society at all. These troubled men really bother me because I feel like they need a lot of help, and I don't think that they're getting help on the governmental or national level at all. And I really think that they're abandoned by women in general, and women just couldn't be bothered with these men. And there are a lot of them out there, and I feel like they are a powder keg ready to blow. So what can we do to rebuild men? In general, I would say that the rebuilding of men requires that men address other men with these clusters of core beliefs at the forefront of their conversations. Are women worth it? Are you a victim of the system? Do you have hope? What is your sexual market value? And do you have game awareness to improve that? Are you pedestalizing women or are you humanizing them? How engaged with society are you? And do you see it as a feminine primary social order or is it patriarchal? What do you think? What is this going to do to your game too? Can you improve your game? Do you think to yourself, I need to improve myself. I need to take a high level of responsibility for my own sense of relating to women. And who can I learn this game from? I'll be honest with you. I am not a pickup artist and I'm not a pickup artist coach by any means. You're not going to learn anything from me. I'm simply an armchair theorist looking at the Manosphere. So just make a note of that. So in review, let's take a look at what we've covered. We've talked about the game metaphor and some of the substructures of the game metaphor. We charted these clusters of beliefs and categorized men in the Manosphere, looking at them in this new way. But the takeaway is, what should men do? What should you do? The purpose of game is to level the playing field of the game board, to idealize yourself without objectifying yourself, to humanize yourself, to engage society with a red pill lens. For women to be worth it, first, you have to be worth it. If you've lost hope, ask why and look for something that you can do to restore it. To de-pedestalize women, you must first pedestalize yourself. Okay, I hope you gained some clarity and the Manosphere makes a little more sense now. The end. Thanks for your time.